Welcome. My name is Marco Cattaneo, and I'm kind of bored right now, so I went like, let's make a video. A video on what? Well, I was interested, like all this COVID stuff going around the world, and people like throwing data at you and then saying something like, well, on the 15th of October next month, we're going to hit our 70% vaccination rate. So I was going like, well, where are they getting these dates from, and how are how are actually doing this stuff? So what I did, I went like, okay, can I actually like do something like this myself? And of course you can. It's not too difficult. So what I've made here is basically I've got some data. I just grabbed it from the internet, some data. You can see there's some dates here, and here it says here like New South Wales, the fully vaccinated people, and you can see that percentage is going up. So the question is like, okay, at what date in the future are we going to hit 70 or 80 or 90%? So I played around a little bit, and I've made this little thing where you can click on a button. It says calculate the intercept date. So I click there, and I was like, okay, when are we going to hit like 85%? I go like, okay. And then it says like, okay, that will be on the 29th of October. Again, calculate intercept date. So when are we going to hit 70%? 70%? Yeah, okay. Well, that's going to be the 10th of October. So how do you do this stuff? That's the big question, of course, okay? So what I'm going to do, I'm going to delete this whole chart. So I'll show you the whole process. So I just assume you can get some data from somewhere. So basically you only need two columns. I've got a column here with dates, and I've got a column here with vaccination rates. And that's really the only information you need here, to be honest. Now realize, and this is an important thing to how this thing works internally, is to understand that a date in Excel actually doesn't exist. What do you mean it doesn't exist? Well, it doesn't exist. A date in Excel is nothing more and nothing less than a number. So how do you see the numbers that are creating this perception of like a date we're looking at? Well, if I press Control squiggly line on the keyboard, Control squiggly line, and the squiggly line is like that little thing, it sits next to the number 1 on your keyboard. So I press the Control key, and then I press the squiggly line. There you go. So you can see those dates, they're just numbers internally. This number is 44451, and then we've got 44457, 44458, and 44459. What are those numbers? Well, those numbers actually represent the number of days elapsed since the 1st of January in the year 1900. Okay, so I'm going to press Control squiggly line again, so I go back to the normal interface. Control squiggly line, there you go. So you can see that the 12th of September 2021, the 12th of September 2021, internally, Control squiggly line, is just the number 44451. And that's how it works. So Control squiggly line again. So if I select these the data here, I just click in the center of like cell A1, I click and drag, so I select those two columns, and I go like, okay, let's insert a chart. So I go like insert from the insert tab, recommended charts because I'm lazy, and it says here like, okay, I recommend a line chart. Okay, I'm going to follow your recommendation. So here, click and go okay, and there you go. I've got myself a line chart. I'll make it a little bit bigger, okay. There you go. Now you need to realize that the numbers you see here, or sorry, the dates you see here, are actually just numbers internally. So this number again was 44,400 and something. Yeah, so they're just numbers. Okay, they're just numbers. So based upon the number you're going to see, yeah, the number that's going up horizontally, which is like basically a date right now, and a number that's going up vertically, you can then like plot a line. If I select the line, you can see all my measurement points. And I've got 4 measurement points, like 1, 2, 3, 4. They're the same measure points here. 46.2, 50.6, 51.9, and 52.6. Now, the thing is like, I want to have a trend line. I want to have a trend line. So what I'm going to do, with the line still selected, I can right-click the line. And I'm going to do what? Well, add data labels. No, I don't want add. Anyway, add trend line. It's there. Add trend line. So I select add trend line. There you go. And you can see like there's this really vague dotted line there. Now if I select that dotted line, which is selected right now, or you can just click on it, realize if I click on this one, I click away first. If I click on the blue line, you see 4 points. That's the normal line, that's a normal data line. But if I click on the other dotted line, I actually select the trend line. If you then right click on the trend line, you can select Format the trend line. And if you click on Format the trend line, you get a whole bunch of options on the right hand side. And the important one here, the really important one, is this one. It says display the equation on the chart. Clickety click. So you can see some type of equation here. I equals something times x minus some type of constant value. The thing is, that's just like a line function. It's a function for a linear line. That's all it is. Like I equals a times x plus b. That's a generic like equation for a line. I equals a times x plus b. Now you need to realize that a trend line, if you create a trend line, there is always going to be like an equation underneath. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to untick it, untick the equation. I don't need it right now. So the next question is like, okay, so how do I know where this line, okay, if it continues, where is it going to like hit the 70%? So what I could do is I could like forecast forward periods. Well, the periods here are basically just days. This is like 1 day, 2 days, 3 days, 4 days, 5 days. They're just days, okay? So if I'm going to forecast for another 40 days, which is a bit a silly way of doing it, but I could, so I just type in 40 here. And I can hit enter. You can see, actually, from this little figure here, that you now see 70 here. And if I follow the horizontal axis all the way to the right-hand side, at some stage, somewhere around here, it's going to cross like the 70 axis, the horizontal axis. And if you then go down, that's roughly on the 12th of October. You see that? So roughly somewhere here, it's going to cross that horizontal line that says 70. And if you go down, it says like roughly the 12th. Well, we know actually it is the 10th. So how do I get this date? That's the whole thing. How do I get this date? And the thing is, like what you normally do, that's always my approach. You start to Google things. Okay, well, how do I calculate an intercept date? That's literally what I was looking for. And I found a bunch of like sources, and they all give you hints and tips and tricks, and then you start to play around with it. So what I basically did is like I wrote a small macro, and the only thing this macro is doing, it's basically picking up the equation of that line. So I equals something times x. In this scenario, it was minus some constant value, and I know that line at some stage needs to be 70. So if you then do your calculations, you get like you get like an x equals some number, but that number is actually the date. That's the whole thing. So if you then convert that number back to a date, I'll show you the number, by the way. So this one, I'm talking about this. This hardly looks like a date, but it's not really a date, it's just a number. So if I go to the Home tab and say this is not a date anymore from the number group, this is not a date, but it's actually just a number, you see the number is 44,479. That's the number it calculates. I'm just going to show it as a date. That's all I'm doing. So I'll quickly convert it back to a date. So it looks like a date, a short date. There you go. So we know that's the 10th of October 2021. Now in the next little video, the next part, I'm going to like explain like how you can actually write that macro. That will actually calculate this date for you. It will also like pick up like that function, that linear function for a line, and it combines the two. Okay, so then we'll do that in the next video. Okay, let's do part 2 of our like, I don't know, calculate date in the future exercise for some data, okay? I'm actually going to start from scratch with like a blank Excel file. Because in the previous lesson I was already like in a macro enabled file. I just want to show you the whole process from the start, from scratch. So assuming like we've just started Excel, we're in a blank workbook, nothing going on here. We need some data. So I'll type in date here, the 12th of the 9th, 21. The 18th of the 9th, 21, the 19th of the 9th, 21, and finally the 20th of the 9th, 21. And we had like some New South Wales fully vaccinated something percentage. 46.2, 50.6, 51.9, and we have 52.6. Yep. Select all the data, click and drag. Click on your Insert tab. Be lazy and click on Recommended Charts, assuming you've got like an up-to-date version of Excel. Yeah, I wanna go with the recommendation because I'm really lazy. Go OK. And you've got yourself a little chart there. Make it a little bit bigger. There you go. Remember, if you click on the line, you can right-click and go Add a Trend Line. Yeah, we want to have a linear trend line, and that's all we want. Nothing more. And now we want to know, like, okay, when will this line, this dotted line, okay, when will this dotted line hit like 70 or 80 or 90%? At what date in the future? So now we need to go into macro space or macro world. And if you want to enter macro world, the easy way to do it is like press and hold down your Alt key on your keyboard and then press F11, function 11 on your keyboard. So Alt F11. There you go. You are no longer in Excel, you are now in Visual Basic for Applications. That's what it's called. VBA, Visual Basic for Applications. There's currently no macros in here, because it's if we open up a normal Excel file, you can't really put macros in there until you do something special, which we're going to do as well. So let's put a macro in here. How do you put a macro in here? Well, you select your workbook, this workbook. I want to select this workbook. I'm going to right click here and then go Insert a Module. There you go. I'll give it a name, sub. I think it's short for subroutine. Let's calculate intercept date. There you go. Two brackets, round brackets, to close my subroutine name, I guess. Hit enter and sub. So your whole macro is going to live or exist between sub with name and end sub. Now if you have a name here, don't use any special characters in there. Don't start with numbers, and also don't use any spaces. If you want to use a space, always use an underscore. But I don't need any underscores right now. That's just a skeleton for a subroutine. How do I know this works? Well, let's hit the tab key. Let's type message box. Showing a message on the screen. Actually, yeah, let's do a message box. Opening bracket, double quotes, hello world, exclamation mark, double quotes, closure bracket. Anything that sits between a pair of double quotes is called a string. It says here like, show the following string on the screen. If you click somewhere inside or between the sub and end sub statements, click anywhere in between, then hit F5. If you hit F5, it's going to run the macro. F5. You see? Hello world. It works. There's a little box there. If you hit OK, you're back into your macro. Now you can also show that hello world not on top of your Excel file, but you can also show it here in your immediate window. Rather than using a message box, you use debug.print. Debug, I can't type, okay. Debug.print. There you go. If I now hit F5, you see, it pops up here. So it's nice for troubleshooting, and we're going to use that. So debug.print, let's call this like running, calculate intercept date routine. There you go. So we know we're in the root. I can't type routine. Enter. Now the first thing I need some variables that I'm going to use to store some of my data in. Now if you want to create a variable in VBA, you use the dim keyword. I think it just stands for dimensioning or something like that. Most other applications will use the var variable keyword. But VBA, it's like it's older than our planet. I think it's like 5 billion years old. VBA. No, I'm just joking. It's probably 40 years old. So it has some weird statement keywords. I want to have access to my trend line. I'm going to store this trend line object in a variable called obj, object trend line. It's going to contain what? Well, it's going to contain my trend line object. So the trend line is actually an object that sits on, that is part of your chart. And I'm going to capture this object inside a variable of my own making called obj trendline. I also need a variable called str. You can call it anything, but I think if you call something, if you give it a meaningful name, it's going to be a lot easier. But I could call this thing just a, but that's a bit it's meaningless a. So I prefer to call it like something like str equation. So I'm going to, I know this thing is going to contain a string because I start with str. It helps me, okay. And this thing is going to contain the equation. Remember, like that linear line equation. And it's going to be a string, just a piece of text. Then I also need some helpers. I've got a C1 and a C2, C1 and C2 as a string. I'll come back to those in a tick. And I also have a dim A and B and X intercept as what? As long. And long means like long numbers. They can contain like decimal values as well. So if you'd like a 3 divided by 7, the outcome will be, the result will be something like a decimal number that can be stored in a long type variable. Okay, that's part 1. Now let's get access to our chart. Well, our active sheet may have many charts on it. I just want to have access to the first one, the first chart that is on my active sheet, and I want to get that chart. I want to get access to the chart object, because if I have access to the chart object, then from that chart object I can hopefully get access to my trend line. And if I have access to my trend line, then hopefully I can access my equation. That's what we're going to do. So I'm going to say with the active sheet, all the chart objects on it, there may be many. I want to have access to the first one, and I want to have access to its chart data. And width. They belong together. Width and end width belong together. So if I have access to that chart, then hopefully I can access the trend line on that chart. So I'm going to set my own variable that I just created earlier, obj trendline. I'm going to say like, okay, I've got all my data series. Remember, we had a data series for the percentages, remember? I want to have access to that data series. And fortunately, we only have one, by the way. So, one data series. Series collections 1. I want to have access to the trend line that comes with that data series. I can't type trend line. And again, we only have one. Will be the first one. So hopefully this will give me, well, actually hopefully it will, this will give me access to the first trend line on my first chart, on my active sheet. That's basically what it says. So hopefully I now have access to my trend line. So with that trend line, I'll do it end width here. So with that trend line, I want to do what? I want to do a couple of things. For example, do I want to display the r squared value? No, I don't. So I'm going to set it to false. Do I want to display the equation? Yes. So I'm going to set it to true. And finally, this is the important one, I want to have access especially to my equation. I can't type str equation. And it sits where? Well, it's stored as a data label, as a piece of text. So like a string again. So that's why I've made my variable as an str, with an str in its name, because it's just text. That equation is just stored as a piece of text. Now, hopefully, this will give me access to my equation. How do I know that? Well, you can always try, remember? You can do a debug.print. And we're going to print our str equation. And hopefully it will appear down here on in my immediate window. So, yeah, that's the whole routine. It's not too big right now. Well, if I remove some of those extra spaces, it will fit on it. So I'll make it fit. Okay, here you go. I'll make it fit on the screen. This one can go, this one can go, this one can go. And it still looks okay-ish, I think. And this one goes. Yeah, it's not too big. So if I put my mouse, if I click somewhere between sub and end sub, anywhere inside that macro, I can press then F5 on the keyboard. It says like running, calculate, intercept. Hello world. That's the old one. Running, running. I can't even spell running. Running. But I don't see my str equation on in here in my immediate window, so that something is going wrong, I think. I was expecting more. What's going on here? Debug.print looks okay. Str equation is just a string. Interesting. Dim str equation as string. Str equation is data label.text. It all looks okay. End with debug.print. Did I do anything? I'll do it once more. F5. Ah, there you go. This is just weird. Okay, I didn't change anything. I was like, there's nothing wrong with my little macro. But now you see, I pressed F5 again, and now it pops up. Okay, call that a glitch. These things happen. I was like, I'm pretty sure I'm doing the right thing here, so that's pretty cool. That's weird, by the way. It should have worked the first time, but it only worked the second time. That is seriously weird, okay? So someone, please, Mr. Microsoft, give me an explanation, like, why do I have to press F5 twice and not just once? But you can see the first part works. We now have access to that, like, linear equation, that linear equation for a line. So this is good. This is part 2. In part 3, in the next part, we're going to subtract, I should say. I want to have access to this part here. I want to have access to this part. Well, actually, I want to have access to this part. So I can then calculate my x value. Because my x value, I mean, if I say something like 70 equals all of that, then I can calculate an x. And that x will actually be my future date. We'll do that in the next video. So far, it's going pretty okay. Okay, let's do part 3. Let's see how we go with this one. So we've got access to our equation. Let's ask for some intercept value. Actually, let's just set an intercept value for now. Actually, no, let's ask the user to enter an intercept value. So str intercept equals input box. Input box. You can use input box to get some input from the user with some message. Enter your intercept value. I'm just making it up, okay? So, there you go. Now, I didn't properly declare str intercept, so I'm going to do it right. Actually, yes, I did. Oh, maybe, no, that's probably from a previous video. So, if you don't have dim intercept as string here as yet, just add it. The thing is, like, you don't have to in VBA. You're not forced to declare all your variables. It's just good practice to do so, that's all. Yeah, so if you don't see that line as yet, just go dim str intercept as a string. Okay, just add it there to the list. I'm going to remove that empty line, I don't need it. Yeah. So we've got like, if I run this right now with F5, you can see what happens. The little window will pop up. It asks the user for an input. So I type in, I don't know, 75. And you go like, okay. So now that value 75 is stored in here as a string. I need to emphasize it's a string. It's not a number as yet. It's just a piece of text. Okay. Let's do what? What I'm going to do for now, I'm going to copy this formula, this equation. just right click and copy, and just chuck it in here so I can show you some stuff. So basically, this is my equation. With Control V you can paste. So that's my equation, okay? Now, realize this is my first character. This is my second character, a space. This is my third character, an equal sign. This is my fourth character, a space again, and so on. Yeah, they all have like all these characters in the string have a location, have a position. And that's what I want to play with. So you can use C1, and you can say like, okay, in that string, starting from location 1. In what string? Well, that string called str equation. Look for what? Well, look for the character, for example, look for the character, the equal sign, and if you find an equal sign, tell me at what position do you find it. And I'll do the same thing for C2. C2, I'm just going to copy this, Control C and Control V to paste. Here I'm going to look for the X symbol. So give me the location of the equal sign and give me the location of the X. That's basically what I'm saying here. Let's see if that actually works. So let's do a debug.print of C1, and let's do a debug.print of C2. I can't type, you got C2. Remember with F5, so let's call this 80 this time. So the intercept value is 80, go OK. So you can see like it finds the equal sign at position number 3, which actually makes sense here, and it finds the X at location 11. I mean there. Yeah, that's the 11th position. You go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. That's correct. Yeah. So far okay. Now also realize that a linear line always has the form I equals AX plus B. That's a linear line. So I want to have access to the A part of my line. I want to have access to the B part of my line. So I can calculate my X for a given Y. And the Y is the value that I type in as a user. That's the 70 or 85 or 90 or whatever. Okay? So how do I get access to that A part and that B part? So how do I get access to this part, A, which is basically this part? Yeah. Well, there's a bit of a trick, and I need to have a temporary variable called, let's call it a str. So for now A becomes a string. I need to have a bit of coffee as well here. Drinking my coffee now. So I'm going to use the mid function. The mid function. It says like, okay, you've got a string. What's the string? Well, the string is called str equation. That's my equation, remember? And in that string, I only want, remember, I want this part. I only want access to this part. But I have the equal sign already. Remember, I have the equal sign. The equal sign sits where? It sits at location C1. Now C1 is currently stored as a string, but VBA is pretty flexible when it comes to like, if it's a 3 between a pair of double quotes, it's kind of the same as the number 3. It's kind of flexible there, which is a nice thing if you think of VBA. So what I want to do, I want to go to location C1 plus 1. That means I'm starting there, just after the equal sign. And I want to go all the way to there, stopping just before the X. How do I do that? Well, let's see. I take the length of the entire str equation. What's the length? let's count, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. I think it's 19, okay? Then I say minus C2. Remember, C2 was 11. So 19 minus 11 is 8. Minus 1. So 8 minus 1 is 7. Okay. So it says from location C1 plus 1, that's this. So from this location, go and grab 7 characters. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. But that's exactly what I want. Look at this. So I get access to this part, but that's exactly what I want. So that's my A string. So I can now do a debug.print. I can't type, okay? Debug.print of A underscore str. If I hit F5, again, let's type in 70 here. Let's go OK. You can see that's exactly what I want. That's 0.7968. That's 0.7968. But the thing is, it's currently a string, and I can't say string divided by something else. That's going to be very messy. So what I need to do, I need to convert this thing to a value. So I can say A equals the value of that whole thing here. So all of this, the output of this, which is that, okay, which is currently a string, make it a value. That's what I'm doing. So I'm converting a string back to a value. And then I can store it into A, because A is a string. Does that make sense? Hopefully, a little bit. Let it sink in, okay? I'm going to do the same thing for B. So B is what? B is the... Actually, first I will do a B string. So B string is what? B string is mid. Use the mid function. What string? Oh, again, str equation. Where do I start? I start, remember, I start to look here after the x. So that's here. And that was C2 plus 1. 11 plus 1, position number 12. And I'm going to pick up how many characters? Well, that depends on the length of str equation, which was 19, remember? Equation, I can't type. That's 19. The length, all the characters in that string is 19. Minus C2. That was 11, remember? C2 was 11, so 19 minus 11 is 8. So pick up 8 characters. Let's see, after the x. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ooh. Okay, C2 plus 1. There you go. C2 plus 1. So x is 11. So from... am I making a mistake here? C2, 11. Plus 1, 12th. From the 12th location, 12th, from the 12th spot, I'm going to pick up, 8. 19 minus 11 is 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There you go. That makes sense. I was thinking 7 for some reason, but of course it's 8. 19 minus 11 is 8, Marco, not 7. Makes sense. So remember, this is a string. So what I can do here for now is a debug.print b underscore str. Run the whole thing with F5. Yeah, make it 75, whatever, it doesn't really matter. Okay. So you can see that's the part. Where is it again? Here you go. Minus. I did see it. Here you go. That's the part I'm picking up, including that. It starts scrolling up and down, which is really annoying. Should I go all the way up? I did see it. Come on, here. This part. 8 characters. 19 minus 11. 8 characters. Yeah, but it needs to go. It needs to become a value again. So let's. This whole output becomes input to the val function, the value function. So the val opening bracket, at the very end a closure bracket. And I no longer need those debugs, so I'm just going to put quotes in front of it. There you go. So I now have access to A and B, which is pretty cool. We're almost there. Then I can finally calculate my intercept value, because my intercept value is simply what? it's my str intercept. Am I doing this correctly? X intercept is my str intercept. Yeah, that's my str intercept. Now, the thing is, like, it's a string, but VBA is kind of like really flexible here. If I type in 75, it's a string, but it also sees it as a number. It's quite flexible here. I should add some more error coding there and all that stuff, and maybe cope with more potential issues, but this will work. So str minus b divided by a. That's how you get like your x-intercept value. Yeah. Quick maths. If you have like I equals ax plus b, so I want to find my x. So what I do is like I say like, okay, I bring the b to the other side. So y minus b equals ax. That's what yeah. And then finally I can say like, okay, so y minus b divided by a. That's my x. Yeah, and that's actually what I'm doing up here. But that goes again. I don't need that. So almost there, almost there, almost there. So I've got my intercept value. So let's put those values somewhere on the sheet. So I'm going to say like, okay, let's go to I don't know, let's go to a cell. Let's go to cell. I don't know. Let's go to cell I6. Let's go to cell range I6. I6. Let's go to cell I6. I want to put some stuff in there. I want to say like intercept at. I want to concatenate some more text because I want to show my intercept value there that I've typed in as a user. And finally, I also want to concatenate a piece of text. I want to concatenate a percentage symbol, maybe with a double quote, with a colon in front of it. There you go. And maybe with a space as well. Yeah. Then in my range, in my cell K5, I'm going to type, I'm going to show my equation, by the way. Just chuck the equation in there so you have access to it. And finally, that's the big one. Let's go to range K6, cell K6, just go to cell. And I want to put a value in there. What type of value? I want to put my x in my x-intercept in there. But that's a number, remember? That's just a number. You know, let's do that. Let's run this because I want to show you this. There you go. Fingers crossed it all works. So I'll now do an F5. So let's say 75 here and go OK. Now it looks like nothing has happened, but you can always do an Alt F11 and go back to Excel. So Alt F11 back into Excel. I can move my chart down a little bit because it was obscuring my my text. So you can see this is my equation. So I'll just type in equation here, by the way. Which is cell I5. Actually, you know what? We'll do that like programmatically, by the way. So that's, remember I5? You go I5. And you can see the intercept value is 44485. Like, what the heck is that? But that makes sense if you look at this formula. Then x becomes 44485. Completely meaningless to us unless we convert it to a date. Now what I could do, I could simply go like select this cell here. Go home, go general, and make it a short date. But I can also do that in VBA. So first thing I need to remember is like I5. So I'll do an Alt F11 again. Alt F11. So I'll just say like range I5 or cell I5 is what is my equation. That's going to contain my equation. And then finally K6. It's not just going to contain x intercept, it will contain x-intercept, but also show that value immediately as a date. So I'm going to format that number. I'm going to format that number. And it needs to show in a format. What's the format? I want to see days, dt, /, I want to see months, mm, /, I want to see like the full year with 4 digits, y. So fingers crossed, this works. So let's do an F5, click somewhere in the macro, F5. Let's make the intercept value 85%. You go OK. Remember Alt F11. You can now see that will occur on the 29th of October 2021. So it's all working, but of course I want to have it working from here. So that's one more part. We'll do it right now. So we'll just go to the Insert tab. Let's go Shapes. From the Illustrations group, Shapes. Let's do a round shape, this one. A rounded corner, or rectangle with rounded corners. You simply click and drag. You then right click there, go edit some text. Let's say calculate intercept date. It's a date. I think it needs to sit nicely in the middle, by the way. So I'll go to the Home tab and click on this little thingy there. Middle align and also center align. There you go, looks a little bit better. Then I right click this big blue button and select Assign Macro. I select my macro Calculate Intercept Date and go OK. If I now click away from my button, if I click on the button again, you can see it's a hand symbol. I can just click there. I type in a number like 70. I go OK. And bang, it doesn't fit. I just double click here between K and L. There you go, you've got the date. Because I did some formatting, of course. Let's do it again. Calculate intercept date. Let's make it 80. Let's go OK. Yeah, a new date. Let's calculate intercept date. Let's make it like 65. Let's go OK. How cool is that? So now it shows you each time. It shows you like that intercept date. So when will this occur? Now the last thing, if you want to save this right now, this file. So you do a file, save as. Just realize it needs to be saved. I don't have an internet connection. My whole modem blew up yesterday. We had like a power a fault with the power pole outside, and it fried most of my devices in my house. So what I'll do, I'll just put it in my documents folder there, and if you try to save it as a normal Excel workbook, XLSX, and you do a save, you see you get an error message. So don't do that. So it says to continue saving as a macro v workbook, click yes. Don't do that. Click no. Click no. Because we want to save it as like an Excel macro enabled workbook. So we can also store our macro inside the Excel file. So let's go calculate intercept date. There you go. As an XLSM file. Calculate intercept date. And then you can save it. Done deal. I should be able to close my file, reopen it. Let's do a file, close. Let's do a file, reopen the same file. There you go. Enable macros. Alt F11. Alt F11. Is that Alt F11? Hello. There you go. It keeps going back. What is happening there? Did I do something wrong? Ah, I didn't click in it. That's why. I clicked next to it and not inside the workbook. That was weird, by the way, but these things happen. Anyway, if you now click on the button, it should still work. So let's type in like 88 for 88%. You go OK, and bang, you've got a new intercept date. Intercept. Oh, hey, there's one thing missing. I don't see my percentage here. It should say intercept at 88%. So let's do another Alt F11. That's here. Of course, I don't have an intercept. I have an str intercept. Remember? I'm pretty sure I've called it str intercept. There you go. This one, this value. I want to print to the Excel file. That looks a little bit better. Yeah, you always troubleshoot a little bit, but testing is always important. Alt F11 again. Let's do it once more. Intercept. Let's go 75. Let's go OK. That looks better. Intercept at 75%. That date. That's what we want. Is that pretty cool? That's the end of the tutorial. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Give me some feedback. I'm going to make another using the tutorial. Because again, I don't have internet right now. I'm pretty bored. So I'm just going to record a whole bunch of videos. Have fun. Bye bye. I thought, what the heck? Let's add one more part to this file. To this little exercise. Something that I just didn't like. First of all, the first thing I've noticed is equation doesn't have a column next to it here. Which I think is annoying. And also, when I do an Alt F11, variables. I just want to make sure that I don't use any variable names that I didn't declare properly. So a couple of things I'm going to change. First of all, I'm going to add my little column here. I think it just looks better, looks more consistent. Then I go all the way up. I add a line above sub calculate intercept date, and I type in option explicit. That kind of forces you, option explicit, that forces you to properly declare your variables. So if I now do an F5, I'll run my macro. If there are any issues, it will complain. There aren't any issues, that's a good thing. Now, the other thing I didn't like was the fact that I actually declared C1 and C2 as strings. They aren't strings, they are positions, they are locations inside a string. So I'm going to change that to, let's make them longs. So a long is basically, they're basically just numbers. And actually, then all of these things are numbers. So what I'll do, I'll make C1, and C2 also just numbers, and A and B of course. So I can remove this line here. There you go. So that's better. Str equation is a string, and str intercept, so I'll put str intercept here, is also a string. So I can remove this one. Looks just a little bit neater, I think. So we've got an object, we've got a bunch of strings, and we've got a whole bunch of numbers, and these numbers can include decimal parts. Because I've defined them all as longs. I think that looks just a little bit neater. Okay? So I'll do an Alt F11, I'll go back into Excel, I'll run it once more just to see if it all works, so 70%, go OK. Yeah, equation, with a nice column there, intercept at 70%, I'll do it once more, I'll make it 88, go OK. Come on, that just looks better, it looks neater. So let's do a file save. If you save your Excel file, then automatically you're also saving the macros that are stored inside that Excel file. So that's it. It's just a little touch-ups. Have fun. Bye bye.